From transforming an old lantern into a sweet bunny burrow or some gardening burlap into cute carrot decor, we hope these 5 simple Easter craft ideas will have you scouring your local thrift store for some budget-friendly crafting supplies. Let's get started! This little rubbed bronze lantern from the thrift store was in pretty rough shape, but had so much potential. As soon as we saw it, we thought a little makeover would make it just the perfect piece for some spring or Easter time decorating. So after giving it a complete scrub down, I gave it a coat of paint. This is a chalky finish paint by Décor. It's called Vintage. It's such a beautiful blue-green kind of color, and you can see how nicely it's coating over the metal of this lantern. I really only needed 1 coat with touch-ups in some areas and took my time and went through all the different parts of the lantern. I had this idea that this lantern was going to become a cute little bunny burrow. So while the paint was drying, I cut out an outline of a rabbit just with some cardboard and then wrapped it with some dollar store twine. Just went around and created this really cute piece. Then I put a bunch of green moss on the bottom of the lantern as the bed for the little bunny burrow. I think this moss also came from the dollar store. Next, I nestled that little bunny friend right in the middle. Oh, I did also put a fluffy pom-pom on there for a tail. And we can't put bunny in the bunny burrow without something to nibble on. So I created these cute little carrots by cutting out little triangles with cardboard, wrapping those with the twine. Here I'm unraveling the top green part and then painting that green, and then I painted the carrot part orange. Aren't these so sweet? They're perfect for our little bunny friend. Now back to the arrangement. To really dress it up for spring, I added all these beautiful florals that I had to the top. I was going for a cream and blue color palette, and I think these peonies and roses helped to achieve that. And then finish it off with a large burlap ribbon. And there we go, an upcycled lantern from the thrift store made a really adorable bunny burrow for my Easter and springtime decorating. Put those plastic Easter eggs to work for this beautiful Easter decor idea. I took the backing and glass out of this old frame and then painted it with a base coat of white paint. As that was drying, I took a bunch of these plastic Easter eggs of different sizes and painted some of them this ivory color and other ones this pretty teal color. It took 2 coats, letting the paint dry in between to get the best coverage on these eggs. I used a chalky finish paint, which gives it a really nice matte finish and also adheres really well to the plastic. Now I went back to my photo frame and gave it a coat of this pearl colored paint, just so pretty and shiny. Then I went back to my eggs, which had dried, and drilled a little hole on the top. And through that hole, I threaded some ribbon. Next, I closed up each of those eggs and repeated this with all the eggs using different lengths of ribbon. I decided to give some of the eggs sparkle with a little bit of diamond dust. So first painted them with some Mod Podge and then coated it with the diamond dust and let that dry. Now it was time to assemble all those eggs in the frame. So the easiest way is simply to turn that frame over and then hang all those eggs, kind of longest ones first and then intermixed with the shorter ones. So I just used some hot glue onto the back of the frame and continued until all the eggs were added. Finally, I added some spring embellishments to the top of the frame. I have some faux tulips here, as well as some greenery, and then a lovely little bow for the middle. Glue or tie those in place if the glue won't hold it. I did a bit of both. I used some Gorilla Glue as well as tying them around with a little bit of ribbon. And there you go, a beautiful piece of decor for Easter, budget-friendly using upcycled items. And I just love the little bit of sparkle and the neutral color palette. Let's make a crackle carrot sign with DIY burlap ribbon. I started by painting a generous coat of Elmer's glue onto this cedar barbecue plank, which will be the background of my piece. And then I dried it, not till it was completely dry, just until it was tacky to the touch. Next, I painted over this with a generous coat of this soft white chalky paint. It's called Whisper. And then let that dry. And you can see as it's drying, all that beautiful crackle appear. This is just my favorite technique to get a rustic backdrop for a craft. Now we're gonna need some ribbon to make the carrot part of the sign. And I didn't have any orange ribbon. If you do, you can use that, like a pretty orange gingham ribbon would be beautiful. But instead, I just cut up strips of this burlap that I had. It's just from the gardening burlap, and then painted it with this orange chalky paint, and this will be the little carrot. So now I'm just set that aside to dry, and while that's drying, I beaded about 20 of these little wooden beads onto some craft wire and then attach that to the top of my sign. So this will be the hanger part. It just adds a really cute farmhouse touch. Okay, now that the ribbon is dry, it's time to build our carrot. I'm using a bit of this faux greenery and just gluing this in place for the stem or the bushy green part of the carrot. And just use your hot glue gun to make it nice and full. And now take your ribbon, either the DIY burlap ribbon or the other orange ribbon that you have, and glue it in place, starting at the widest area at the top and crisscrossing down the sign, getting narrower and narrower as you go to create that carrot shape. It's so cute. I mean, you can be all done there, but I also added a bit of a bow with some twine. And then to give it kind of an aged effect, I just brushed some brown wax around the outer edge and then rubbed that in. I just love how this cute and simple carrot craft turned out. It makes a lovely piece of decor for spring, but also would be a fabulous gift for anyone's Easter basket. Let's paint some adorable Easter egg mason jars for that Easter gifting or decor. You'll need some jars, some chalky paints, elastics, brushes, some sandpaper, and a bit of raffia. So simply start by removing the lids from your jars. Paint one jar with the green paint, one with blue, and the other with the white paint. You can add a second coat if needed, letting the paint dry completely between coats. On the green jar, we simply used a large sponge dabber to create these large polka dots. For the blue jar, I used an elastic band as a guide to help create a line, and then this zigzag pattern with white paint. And then for the third jar, again, I used elastic bands as guides and then added on straight lines in pink and green paint. Once the paint dried, I removed those elastic bands. Then I used a bit of sandpaper to distress some of the raised edges on each of the jars. Finally, I tied a bit of raffia around the neck to create adorable painted Easter egg jars. This colorful bunny from the thrift store was ready for an elegant makeover. Yes, I did start by giving her a coat of this dark gray chalky paint. My vision was a nice white and neutral bunny, but I had an idea of having a little bit of the dark edges peeking through, almost like a vintage effect. The dark paint also really covered all that color really well. Once I painted the whole thing with the dark gray paint, I just dried it with my heat gun to speed that part up. And then I coated it with a coat of white chalky paint. Although it looked like it was ceramic, the bunny was actually a plastic or resin, and the paint adhered really well. And while the paint was still dry, I took my paper towel and scrubbed away at the white paint along those ridges of the design. I continued with my white paint until all those little nooks and crannies were covered. Of course, it took longer than I had anticipated it would, but it was actually really satisfying to cover over all this dark paint. Again, I took my paper towel and tried to rub away some of the white paint from the raised edges and the frills around the dress. Of course, she needed a little sparkle, so I brushed on some Mod Podge onto the hat and then coated that with a little bit of diamond dust. I tapped off the excess and then let that dry. Now it's time to work on those details, so I just used a little bit of black paint and a fine paintbrush to add on some eyes and adorable little lashes. And then I touched up the flower of her hat and her little snout with a bit of pink paint. Now I did this craft during a Facebook Live, and one of the viewers so smartly raised the fact that this now looked like a stone or cement statue. The black peeking through the white paint just gave it that effect. So fun. I finished off this piece by rubbing on a little bit of gold paint along some of those frilly edges just to give it a little touch of elegance. And I absolutely love this adorable bunny makeover. She was cute to begin with, but now she's just extra special and perfect for our Easter time decorating, and we used her in a pretty spring centerpiece, which I'll show you how we made shortly. Look at that sparkle on her hat. And yeah, I completely feel like she could be sitting in the garden as a little garden statue as well. We hope you enjoyed these 5 upcycled Easter craft ideas. They think it's so amazing what you can make with thrift store items, items you have from home, and budget-friendly items as well to make gifts and decor for spring and Easter. Which one was your favorite? If you like this video, be sure to subscribe for more nature-inspired DIY and crafts.